This video will gonna be a short one. I'm not showing you the tedious process of front-end implementation. That's not a good one after all. Instead, we'll briefly review the markup and the code I wrote, and then run the complete quiz locally, this time in the web browser. It took me hours to implement the front end, but I didn't want to share this experience with you because this front end I have now is not only ugly looking, but also is built on a low quality vanilla JavaScript. So I'll just show you what I have and how this works together with backend. What I have is a static website with two pages, and the main page is an index page that is pretty simple in its side and refers to a couple JavaScript files. The most important one is the one that actually animates the page, that adds functionality to the page, initiates request to the server, and renders the response. But the request to the server I implemented here in the server.js, and later on I may update this file to work with Lambda function, because Lambda function might be providing slightly different API. Here is a class that encapsulates the work with the local state, and it resembles in a way the API, the domain repository for the quiz state. For the quiz state, I resort to Redis to store key value pairs. It's not a safe storage, but it works for us. And in the very same way, the local storage of our browser works for us to preserve the data between different calls to our server and between page reloading. This is a small file where I collected several functions of, say, data formatting or HTML escaping, but the main logic for the main page is in this file. And when the user switches or to the existing quiz or starts a new quiz, the user is being redirected to this quiz round page. The page is built in the same manner. Again, here is a page manager class that I define in the round manager.js, plus couple more JavaScript classes to render, to request some data from the server, but I'm not requesting the server directly in these files. I have this server.js. Before showing you this file, I'll show you how it works, how our quiz works now, before I implemented the Lambda function on the server and it works with my local backend that I'm running just now, but before this, I'm gonna start my Redis instance. Fine. As this is a static website, I just go and browse the existing index HTML, and I use this option open in browser Chrome. Now let's see what's happening. And nothing's happening so far. I don't see quizzes here, options to start, because I forgot to start my backend. I just started Redis. That's not enough, obviously. Let me refresh the page. And now I have the quizzes. I have two options, the quizzes that I declared in my storage directory, quiz subfolder. And I'm gonna test the page, but I wanna check what's going on, what network calls do I perform. Starting from the very beginning, I refresh the page again. And here, probably, I'll also check this box. I need only fetch requests. And the one fetch request that I executed is quiz topics. Quiz topics, again, the endpoint we tested already locally with our integration tests and CRL utility. This is a simple GET request. I don't use any headers except for, let me check the request headers, except for, probably that's it. I don't declare any headers specifically. The rest of the headers are declared by the browser itself. And in the response, I've got this quizzes data. I could have tested it already with CRL. Let's actually select and start the quiz. I'm selecting the second one, and I have provided my username, let it be ABC. And the interval between question, let it be a little shorter. 5 seconds is enough for me. I press start. And now I already checked the quiz status. And the quiz status, what is it? I have both the state and the user. And I have my current user token. I don't have answers so far. This is an empty list. But my role is a commander. That's all right. And the state is pending. And the quiz expires at this time, and it will update in 600 seconds. This means the quiz will expire in 10 minutes. That's fine. Even though our GUI is ugly, it works. So I'm gonna just start the quiz and see how it works. I'm gonna provide my answer and check the result. I'm starting the quiz, and you see the time is getting updated. Yes, now I have just a limited time to answer my question, 5 seconds. Yes, now it's question second of the two. Select mammals. Oh, I haven't managed to answer the second question. That's okay. That was a test. And let's see, I already have the results, and the results are coming from the quiz, from one of the quiz check status requests, probably. No, from this request. My frontend still keeps polling the server for the results. Probably I should have addressed this. I should have addressed this issue and make the frontend stop querying the results when the quiz is over. But let me check if it's what I answered for the quiz. For the first question, I selected the option hawk. It was chosen and it was correct. And for the second question, I didn't manage to select any option. But let's see if I have also the values, the time I spent answering the questions. I could have this time in the quiz as well. User answers. First answer was given in 4 seconds, so only 1 second left before the question has been changed for something else. And for the second answer, I didn't give any, for the second question, I didn't give any answer. The answer is empty, and the answer given second is -1. That's fair. And in the quiz status, I have the quiz results, just one player. And for the player, I've got all the answers. The number of correct answers is 1. That's it. Our quiz worked. Now I can refresh the page, and as I preserve my username, it will be still stored. Yes, it's still here. And I'm still requesting the quiz status from the server, so this part of the page was rendered by an AJAX request to the server. This is not something that was rendered on the server side. So our quiz works. My laptop sounds for some reason like a jet airliner, so I'm gonna finish this backend part. Probably I'm gonna close this page and return back to the implementation. For the implementation part, the main file I want to take a look first. This is server.js. This is the interface between the backend and the frontend, and the interface is pretty simple. I hard-coded the server base URL, and probably in future I would change it for something else upon deploying the site in the cloud. And the basic part is this very request fetch that I execute to the server providing the URL based on the base URL plus the specific method. And upon receiving the response, first I'm checking the status of the response, and checking the status. Having an error, I would throw an exception, and I would render this exception later on, probably in a pop-up window, or maybe just in the console. But if it's okay, there is on completed handler, And this onCompleted handler is the basic part for all the requests. When I get in the quiz topics, when I'm starting the quiz, when I'm joining, scheduling the quiz, etc. The last argument of each of these methods is onCompleted handler. And let's see how I use this handler if I, for instance, start in a quiz. If I'm starting a quiz on the main page, I'm calling this start quiz server endpoint and providing this handler to redirect the user to the next page quiz round. And for the start quiz request, if we go back, we need specific payload, the quiz ID, the username, the interval seconds. And this payload we convert into the JSON. This JSON will be the request body, plus the headers. Headers are something we are usually sending in almost each and every post request. It's an application JSON we expect, and we send apparently to the server again the application JSON. So if we go back to the server side, where we are using this endpoint when we are starting the quiz, the handler is an arrow function. We've got the quiz state. In this arrow function, we are using the current instance, the current JavaScript class. We define it for the index page. And in the JavaScript class that represents the index page, we have the local state, and the local state is another class that we defined in a separate module. And we use it as probably in the same manner we use the Redis storage on the backend side. We update the state and we change the window location, so routing the user to the quiz round page. On both these pages, I have just one top-level class. It's a page manager. And page manager is kind of view, not the view, it's probably the model and the controller of the page. In this class, I define here roundmanager.js. Roundmanager.js looks plus minus the same as the corresponding page manager for the index page. I need the server to execute some requests to the API and the local state to preserve the state between the calls and probably between the page loadings. The quiz state, just a current state variable, the quiz timer that I'm using to render the running time in the quiz on the top right side of the quiz window. And this blocks renders the answers. Somewhere I'm addressed the elements that already exist on the page. But somewhere else I would construct DOM elements. I would construct them runtime. For instance, when I'm rendering the quiz state and I want to render the quiz users, on the top left side, I have a list of the users who are participating in the quiz. And I'm creating elements, DOM elements dynamically, and I'm adding these elements to the container, to the parent div. This is the way I render the state for both the pages, for index page and for the round manager page or quiz round page. Probably the most tricky part here is updating the quiz window periodically. And this update should be bound to the expected update on the server side. When the next question is going to be rendered, when the quiz is going to finish, and then the quiz is going to start when it's scheduled, I need to update my page. And how do I do this? I have a timer that I set up while rendering the quiz state. Probably I have it somewhere here, periodical updates. Here, this is the object that renders the running time in the top right corner. And also here, if updates in seconds from the server side is at least equals to 0 or greater, I will set the timeout to update the whole page. And the next time that I update the page, I also check this update in seconds interval. And if the quiz state is going to update soon, one more time, if it was question number 2, the next question number 3 is coming in 15 more seconds, I will repeat this whole cycle. This mostly works, but as we saw, it didn't work exactly like I intended when the quiz is finished. So this is not an ideal implementation, but again, it's work and our page is responsive. Each time it should be updated, it's getting updated. To sum up, it works, and the next important thing, this website is a static one and I can host it easily in the cloud. So this whole storage folder is probably the future content of the buckets, or I will create in the S3 storage in AWS. But this belongs to the next part of our journey, and our journey in the front end is over. Both our backend and front end work together well.